wanna run away. I swear there ain't no reason to stay. There's only pain in this place. Now won't you meet me in the middle today? And I've been too afraid to break it off. Maybe it's cause I'm too soft. Today's the day that I walk away before it gets too late. You don't know, and I really, really wish you did, but this is what the issue is. Yeah, I don't wanna be cruel to you. I can stay cool, or I could just change the way it goes. You won't even have it your way. Don't know how I managed to stay here. Wait until my brain explodes. You won't even have it your way. No, I won't even know what to say. Don't know how I managed to stay here.
Yay! Story behind that.
Yeah, man.
That was, it was 2012/13 when Alpha Mist and I actually made that song. So we both met at Brunel University, and he was a year above me. But like the thing about Brunel and music courses is they weren't, how do I put it without, I can be nice. They weren't particularly good.
I was gonna feel free to speak your mind.
I think because I'm a little bit older than maybe some of the people in the room, but like they also, music courses weren't in every university at that point. So it's just like I probably made a bad decision because I didn't want to move out of London. I wanted to stay in London because I wanted to just be doing music, but I also needed to be, well, for family's sakes, I had to be getting a degree. So I was just like, because I started off actually getting a design degree, but I moved over to music because I was just like, I need to put all my focus into music. I get to the music course, and like the only way I can put it is there was only like 3 of us black people that were making music that was anything like that, which was soulful, hip hop, any sort of R&B. So then obviously the day that one of the course leaders says, you guys need to pair up into into groups or bands, it was just like, I'm looking around like, who here plays jazz, R&B style? So no, okay. But someone said, you need to meet Alpha, and I was just like, Alpha, okay. So I can't even remember how we got introduced. It was so random, but I remember the first moment actually meeting him, walking into the rehearsal rooms, and like he was like, he's one of those people that plays piano like this, and like playing the most beautiful piano I've ever heard in my life. And this is just when I'm first hearing people like Robert Glasper for the first time. So to see it in real life, how Alpha kind of at that time not sounded like Robert, but it was the closest thing I'd heard to somebody else doing that. And he was like super quiet and really, really reserved. And it was just like we had to practice. I can't remember what song we chose, probably something by Gretchen Parlato, because at the time he was really like, he was introducing me to a lot of beautiful jazz singers at the time. So we probably had to learn something like that. And I think we just realized that our individual artist sounds, even though we were both so new to being artists and we were studying, like we just realized that when we'd even be learning other people's music, we would like divert into making our own music together. And like, because he'd be playing something, I just start singing in. And then there were studios. This is the thing, which I guess is different now because everyone goes to studio all the time. But back then, Brunel had these amazing studios that nobody used. No one ever booked them. And it was just like, let's go into the studio, let's use it because no one else is. And then I got introduced to do you know Dornick? Yeah, Dornick he was there at the same time as well. So it was like me, Dornick and Alpha just using these studios random days. And because we then ended up with like maybe 12 or 13 random songs that we'd made, that being the first one, Stay Here was the very first song that Alpha and I made. Sorry, I tell stories in the longest way. I just clocked I've been talking for ages. Tell me when it's too much.
We're with you though. We're with you. Yeah.
But yeah, we had this collection of songs that didn't have a purpose other than it was just for us to have just been making stuff. And like we were between the uni studios and then just my bedroom. So like Stay Here happened in the uni studio, and then I did like some touching up at home and stuff like that. And after we'd graduated, it was like we just finalized the project, and then 2014 we put out Epoch, that was obviously the first track on there, and that's the story of how that song happened.
It's a great story. It's a fantastic track and it's a fantastic EP. And the thing that really struck me was, your vocals are on just beautiful, really
Thank you. Warm,
on point. So talk to us a little bit about your approach to laying down vocals.
Yeah. I don't know if there is like an orthodox way. Well, there is, but like it was really, at the time it was very unorthodox. I didn't really know what I was doing back then. It was like, that was my real introduction to recording something that was going to be released as a body of work to a lot of people and online as well. But I mean, my process for even just writing was always just improvising and then finding the melodies. All the stuff I did at home was done on the most basic gear. Like at that time, I probably had a SC2200A microphone. I was using, I'm guessing, a Focusrite audio interface then and some KRK speakers in my bedroom. And I was recording on Cubase, which I still use Cubase like now actually for vocal arranging because it's like an extension of me now.
Intuitive, right?
Yeah, literally that. Everything, obviously I do so much in terms of vocal layering, so harmonies and stuff like that. When you look at my projects, for the BVs alone, there's probably like 20 to 30 stacked vocals, things that are being panned left and right, censored, stereo, all this sort of stuff. But yeah, with this, it was very much like the main vocal is the focus. Not much processing was going into it. I mixed everything that came out on Epoch, and it was kind of real just basic compression, EQ. It sounds really warm and muddy because it was done in my bedroom. When I listen to it now, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many. I would fix that. But my approach then was the most basic. Yeah.
But it doesn't sound that way. It sounds really, rich and warm and honest. Talk a little bit about improvisation and using that as a tool to kind of get, ideas together. But at some point, particularly with things like BVs, you've got to do your math almost. Yeah. Particularly with your style of BVs, which are seminally call and response and are kind of like, quite anecdotal at times. Yeah. So is there a mix? Is it a mix of, say, improvise to get, say, the top line done, and then you start with one track after the other, or do you really sit there and go, okay, that's harmony, I'm going to do the octave, the fifth, seventh, or whatever? Yeah. Do you have is there a mathematical approach to it, or is it still just jamming and layering and seeing what works?
It's really some time-ish. A lot of the time it's completely on vibe. So when I'm working with Alpha, because a lot of his beats and where he's changing the chord and how the groove is, it's like you have to really find a pocket that makes sense. Ultimately, it's not that there's only one right thing to do, but it will feel like this is the perfect thing to do. So in terms of writing the top line, it's like I often just find a motif, like something that is going to run the whole way through, because his stuff is just 8-bar loops a lot of the time, and then another 8-bar loop for a chorus. But then it's always just because he's really inspired by hip hop and the chords are jazzy. It's like there are only loops, so you just want to find a pattern that really sits there and doesn't distract so much from what's happening in music. In terms of the BVs, it almost is like it just feels like I'm hearing it before I've written it. So like I will put down all of my top line vocals, and then it's like I'm listening to it, and it's almost like there's a space. There's only like one place that these vocals could go. There's only one thing, and I can't explain how that happens. It just is something that feels right. I have I have harmonies that I just tend to go to. Everything I'm like more drawn to like minor chords anyway. So everything is kind of really neo soul sounding and like major 9 kind of chords. That's just because I'm just an R&B and neo soul baby. So anything I approach, anything that's gonna I'm gonna connect to is gonna have that kind of, it's like sounds happy but a little bit sad, but also like sexy and jazzy. So then like in terms of harmonies and my approach to that, it's that.
So would you say when you're writing the top line, writing the verses, are you almost like subconsciously arranging it beforehand? Because you're saying you're an R&B neo soul baby, it's almost like that in the verses is almost going to be like the lead vocal by itself for a while, maybe double tracked, but then when it comes to bridge, you know there's going to be some kind of call and response with the BV. So do you know that instinctively first?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think I have a formula where that kind of just like follows the music that I grew up listening to. So in most like R&B music, there is that like the A bit of the verse with the first 8 bars of the verse is like just the solo vocal by or the top line vocal by itself, and like maybe there's some BVs there, but then when it comes to the pre-hook, so the next 8 bars, that tends to be where the background vocals really come to the front, and then it's like, and it's kind of climbing towards the chorus. Then when I do my chorus vocal, it's like a lot of doubling, loads of like background vocals, and I kind of approach those like string arrangements. So I always think of like on my songs, a lot of my BVs, if I'm like in this one, when I'm actually singing the BVs on the chorus, I'm saying something, but a lot of my songs I'm actually just going and just like harmonizing what I imagine a string section would do there. So I actually approach the BVs like another instrument just to like lift the song at the chorus. Yeah.
Let's hear more of that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. You came out of nowhere. The worst timing, I was finding my way out here, but your force is blinding. I can't understand it. Are you even from this planet? No, I don't understand it. I swear you couldn't have planned it. You got me singing na 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 na. You got me going out my mind, babe. I swear I'm running out of time, babe. Cause your sugar's so divine. You got me singing na 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 na. I know my wrongs from my rights, babe. Got me staying up all night, babe. You're running laps around my mind. Oh baby, won't you come closer? I wanna feel you all over me. I don't know what's happening. I'm sure that you're just a distraction. Oh baby, won't you come closer? I wanna feel you all over me. I don't know what's happening. I'm sure that you're just a distraction. Yeah, baby, you know you piqued my attention. Now you know if it wasn't so obvious, you hardly escaped my thoughts. Came through me right, of course. Here's what I wanna do. Spend all my time with you. Here's what I wanna do. Spend all my time.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
Shall I tell a story about that one?
Yes. So before you do, you obviously, you don't just sing and write BVs, you obviously produce, right?
Yeah.
So at one point did producing your own music become really important?
I actually started producing before I started singing. I just think like that was what I wanted to do before I became an artist or a singer. And what was your question? When or when did it become?
When did it become important?
When did it become important? Because I think that was always like the main focus. It was important right away that like I was making beats because I was so obsessed as a kid with Pharrell, the Neptunes. And like my favorite album when I was like a teenager was Justified by Justin Timberlake. Like that's still my favorite album right now. And I wanted to make music that sounded like that. And like if I wasn't working with Pharrell, then I wasn't gonna get that sound. So I was just like, I had to be Pharrell then. And like, so that's kind of like what actually got me into music, was trying to to emulate the Neptune sound. So right from when I was about 11, 12 years old, that's when production was important.
So how did you go about modelling the Neptunes, the nerd sound? What equipment did you have to replicate?
I had a Windows family PC and like Fruity Loops. I don't know what version it was, but it was like the free download demo version that you couldn't actually save the songs. Practicing, trying to like find a way to record the songs because you couldn't bounce. I don't know if you could bounce them out. Maybe you could. I can't remember what it was, but you needed to be able to save. You couldn't save the demo. So I was just emulating what the Neptunes was doing. So actually, if you could, because I know you're not going to found anything that's that old, but like if you could listen to my music when I was like 16, 17, it was just a rip off of like Neptunes. Maybe even my song Jealous, Jealous, Jealous that still is floating around, but like that, if you just listen to it, it's just me trying to be Pharrell. And like it was just Fruity Loops back in the day, and then I kind of progressed to Reason, Cubase, Logic, then Studio One. Yeah.
So with this tune now, what I found really intriguing is obviously the intro is really clever, where you kind of like, half time, double time sample thing. Yeah. Where did that idea come from, and then when did it segue into this kind of almost like Bashment style, Bash and B kind of track?
I think a lot of the time, actually I know, a lot of the time I'm just experimenting. I wish I could remember what I had sampled exactly to give me that initial sound, and a lot of the time what I do is I get an old song of my own because I've just maybe I'm trying to rejuvenate it or something like that, and then when you the halftime thing, when you throw a sample into something that won't time stretch it and fix whether you hit a different key and it changes the speed, with that it literally was just the fact that when I press one note, and if I press the octave lower, it would just make the whole sample slower or faster. So it wasn't even like a conscious, this is going to play slower because it's going to give a vibe. It literally was, I didn't time stretch the samples and it just sounded good that I didn't put stuff in time. That's how that initially started. In terms of the vibe, when I was making Distraction, it was right when Drake was trying to do the dancehall thing. Well, not trying to, because he definitely did it. He made millions of pounds, millions of dollars, probably more so than any other dancehall artist. But like, it was because he was doing that, and I wasn't particularly like consumed by that music then. It was just I wanted to do my own spin on it and find a way to have a song that you can dance to, but like I can still throw massive harmonies on there and do like a jazz break, which is the drum and bass sort of thing, but like with stuff just being pitched up and down. But yeah, that was kind of the inspiration. There was a lot of just let me just do and feel until something happens, and it just happened to be a song.
So when you were developing that song, did you ever feel that you were, was it wrong? Like the fact that you're trying to make this track this kind of Bashment style, you're doing this half-time, double-time thing with the samples, did you ever question some of your production choices?
At that time, no. Like, maybe before, like, I've had periods of time where you would think there's like a one way to do something. You would question whether what you're doing is right, or whether it's going to, I don't know if it's going to translate to people successfully. But at that point, I was in full, like, I'm going to present music that is a little bit all over the place, which is kind of what my album ended up being, was just like, this is a really juvenile version of me. Like, the music I'm making right now is actually quite, like, locked in the groove. But when I was doing Honeymoon, it was like, I'm going to make this song change all of the time, and it's going to start one way and end as a completely different song, and every song does that bar the interludes. So at that time, it was almost purposeful to show that there wasn't any rules to what I was doing.
And was it, would you, not that it's about arrogant, but was it you just trying to make this kind of arrogant statement that you could, you can do what you want and you can take people on this journey that's unexpected?
Probably yes. But I think it was also like, I had spent so many years trying to be something that wasn't me, and then it's like there's no way to be somebody else perfectly, and I just realized that actually what was really working for me was just what I could do and what I liked, and then what I did like was just being a little bit juvenile with the production and things just accidentally happening, especially when I was working on like a lot of the earlier stuff. I wasn't massively versed on like production and like the vocabulary and the tools and stuff like that. So stuff was just happening on accident. Like even the time stretching of the sample, that was just like, oh, that just sounds cool. I could fix it, but I probably don't know how to. So it's going to stay like that. And then that just made for a really experimental sound. And like, luckily it just kind of became my signature sound. Yeah.
So in developing your album, it's interesting that you've talked about the fact that you didn't know the technical terminology for stuff. You're just making music, right?
Yeah.
How did you hone your skills, and how did you develop your confidence in the music that you're making, both on the kind of songwriting side, but also on the production kind of side?
Practice. More than anything, I was really just lucky to get in with other producers and like watch what they're doing and then just ask questions. Like, I'd be like, what does LFO actually mean? Like, like years ago, like I can hear what it's doing, but like technically, what does that mean? Because if I know what it's doing, like technically, then I know how I want to implement it when I have an idea that isn't something I've seen before. So then it was asking questions. Obviously, they're just like YouTube tutorials. When you've lived with a song for so long, and then also when you release songs, they just sound so different. So I think the process of releasing music, it's like I'm able to listen to a song that I make every single day until the day I release it. I can't listen to it ever again. So it's like it goes out, and then all I can do is like, oh my God, when I hear it in a car somewhere or something, oh my God, I would have changed the snare, I would have changed the hi-hat and stuff like that. So that like obsession with it needing to be better just like drove me to practice and to ask questions. And also like it's probably bruised my ego a little bit sometimes, but people just coming up and saying, you know what, you should have done this on the track. 'Cause like, it's out now. How can you tell me that? Like what, like, okay, I literally can't do anything about that. Like the amount of times I've released something and people say, oh, Em, you know, we're just playing your song in the studio right now. I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, my uncle said that like he knows a guy that's a really sick engineer. If you need someone to engineer your music, I'm like, wow. Like, yeah, but I'm just like, but you need that because you need someone to be like, you know what, there would have been a better way for you to have done that, even if it's too late. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I would argue no. I'd think that, you know, I always give the analogy of kind of, you know, The Chronic and Enter the Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're both fantastic records, right? Do you know what I mean? One sounds like mud.
Yeah.
You know, which one is it, people? Which one? Thank you. There you go. And The Chronic's a masterpiece, sonic masterpiece, right? Yeah. But they're both fantastic genre-defining records. Exactly. So, of course, there's, you know, the old idea of, you know, what excellence is I think is personal, but then also I think it's something that you can grow and evolve into. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I think so, you know, I beg to differ with the uncle.
Appreciate that.
And also you've done it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, one thing I've really liked about, you know, seeing your career grow is just your industriousness and just tenacity. Do you know what I mean? Both in terms of songwriting, but also more importantly, as importantly, with the music production side of things. Yeah. So I'm going to play one more track. Okay. To me, this one's bananas. So I just want to. I'm going to be sitting there going. I'm not going to say anything. You just break it down.
Okay. Let's hear
it. You gave a little bit of you with your love, but don't you give it all away, not too much. Save a little for you. Here's what you do before you let anybody in your heart. You gotta make sure you're not moving too fast. Save a little for you, enough to get through. Nobody cares for you unless you do. So make sure you do. And find someone that leads you to your truth. If that's all you do. Before you give your little heart away, take a little time away. Before you give your little, take a little. Before you fully light a fire, make sure you know that they are right for ya. Play it smart before you spark it. What they're telling you, don't sit on your soul. Well then I'm telling you, it's time to let go. Protect yourself, do love well. Nobody cares for you. Nobody cares for you. So make sure you do. And find someone that leads you to your truth. If that's all you do. Before you give your little heart away, take a little time away. Before you give your
It's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
I think you're a music lover, so you appreciate that. I think it's one of those songs that, like, when I released it, it was a double release. It was with another song called Oops, and like all of the attention went to Oops, and I was like, but I wanted people to like this song too. I wanted the numbers to reflect that people loved this song, but like ultimately the people that came back to me that liked this song over Oops were the people that like they just love music. So because you're a music lover, I know, I appreciate that you like that song. Thank you.
Well, there's the depth there, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just really clever, and you know, so let's take it to the beginning of this track. How did you start it? How did you build it?
That was, who was I listening to at that time? A lot of it is I hear a song I really like, and I'm like, I want to make something that makes me feel like how I felt when I heard that song. I think I could be guessing, but like I have a feeling I made that song around the time, am I right? Around the time that I did a show with an artist called Emmavie at the Jazz Cafe. And like that's the one, I feel like that was me in my Emmavie bag, because he always has these really odd time signatures, and like the drums are changing at a weird place, but like maybe the bass is kind of keeping the groove of the song. It's in 6/8. So when I was, I think I chose the time signature before I chose anything else, because I have another song called Deluxe on my album where I was just like, I need something in 7, but I'm like, what could that possibly be? So I start with the drums, just so I'm just like, okay, at least there's a groove here that is locked. So with this track, I started with the drums, and like finding that like pattern that even though it's in a maybe not so danceable time
Still
signature,
feels like you can nod your head to it, kind of
exactly.
thing,
So I just locked into that, and then also I was just wanted to tell a story, because I knew that one, Oops is a real quite like a ratchet song from me, and I was just like, I needed some balance. And with Letter, it's literally about like you have to love yourself wholly in order to even be able to discern whether you're being loved correctly by other people, and like to be patient too. So it's just like I really wanted a wholesome song. So then, and like I don't know, jazz and neo, so most songs written over that music have some substance. Like there's always a really beautiful message behind a really like beautiful like track or beat or instrumental or something like that. So it's just like, well, hopefully people will listen to what I'm saying on that song, because the music kind of like it isn't something that like you're just gonna play in the club. It's something that like you want to sit there and listen to. Where are the snares hitting, like, oh, there's a change here and stuff like that. So it kind of demands that you sit down and listen to the song. So then I was just like, okay, if you're going to be listening to a song, I hope that there's also a message to take from this. And then I was just layering stuff. Once I had the drums, it was like the chords and then the bass, and then everything else is kind of just layers of vocals and more pads. But there's not really, it sounds like there's a lot going on, but it's more that the pattern is quite, it's drive. Yeah, there's a lot of drive behind it. So otherwise it's quite a simple track to have made. I think my focus was just the story of the song.
And lyrically, I mean, how what's your approach to writing lyrics?
So stylistically with this song, I was thinking, I know what I was listening to as well as in Emmavie stuff. I was working closely with a producer called Monty Booker at that time, like in that exact period, and he played me a lot of Cuban music. And like the singers they're always like, so I was just like, oh, I wanted to do something that was quite like, it sounded like, what do they call, not a musical, but you know when you get those movies where it's a musical, but it's a bit different. Yeah, it's a musical, I guess. Like the way that they approached that in the 50s, and you had to listen to what the person was saying because they're telling the story of whatever it is that you're seeing on the screen. So it's just like, and there's a way that they sing it too. It's like, oh darling, you've walked into the room and now you're falling down the stairs. And it's like, don't know why I thought of that. That's my freestyle brain giving me a topic. I'm joking. But yeah. So then I was thinking, okay, I want it to be that I find a pattern that feels really like 50s kind of, but Cuban stylized in that way, and it's repeated so much that like you're not listening for new melody anymore. You're just kind of like locked into what I'm saying. So once I found that pattern, it's just repeated the whole way through. Yeah.
Must have got a motif in itself, right?
Exactly that.
And do the song lyrics come to you quickly, or does it vary?
Because I had the idea of what the song was about, because it was what I guess lyrics come to me quickly when I'm in a particular space. So a lot of the time when I write a song that is going to get finished really quickly, it's because I feel something in that moment. So when I was writing that song, I was actually going through a breakup and I was really sad and stuff like that. But it's just like, I felt like I needed a song that when I play it to myself, it will remind me that like, this is what you need to do. And then it's also once I've recorded it and I've sent it out to the world, then I have to stick by it as well. That's another thing. So it was like, what is the message? When I write lyrics, actually what I tend to do is before I've even written the lyrics, I'll go into notes and I'll start writing, what am I going to say? So I might just say this, I have to at some point talk about loving yourself. I have to at some point say that like, it isn't going to be beneficial for you to ignore these things. I will write it just like that. Like obviously not particularly romantic or poetic in any kind of way, but I'm just like, just so I know to stick to this story. And like, then because I have like points and goals that I'm trying to reach, and melody is kind of like already there, but whilst I was making the beat, it's like, I'll find the first line and then the rest of the song just kind of writes itself. And I really can't, I feel like that's just, the rest of that's just magic, because sometimes I'll look back. You know, the one thing I've been finding recently is I'll get to the end of recording a whole song and not having remembered thinking about whether the song was rhyming. And like I've had that a few times. I've listened back and I'm just like, I don't remember thinking about making sure that the next line rhymed. It just happened like that. So I'm just like, but there is another thing that I've learned recently, well, probably in the last year, is that creativity, like it comes from, it's not so much in your mind, it comes from the gut. So a lot of the time, like the songs already kind of exist in you. So that's why I kind of feel when I get really lost in a song, I'm not even present a lot of the time. So like I go back and I look at the lyrics I've typed to my phone and I don't really remember having done that, and I'm playing back the song and not really remembering having thought about whether the lyrics rhyme. They just happen to do that. So yeah.
Do you think that, so in terms of writing lyrics and just almost like bringing this picture to life, do you I don't get the sense that you apply the same way of working to the music side of things, because it's almost, do you have to be a bit more kind of like, structured and a bit more down to earth with that stuff?
Which one?
In terms of making the music, so I'm trying to work out whether there's a distinction between your approach to writing lyrics and the voice side of things, as opposed to the beats, music making side of things. Are you in a different headspace, or do you approach it differently psychologically? That is.
I think I do. I think because in music production, I'm kind of locked into a few genres. So it's like there are sensibilities inside those genres. There's just things that you're just going to do, and there are some rules in that. Then there is structure, because there's always going to be, not always, but like with most of my tunes, there's going to be the drums, there's going to be the keys, maybe the sample and the bass. So there's like a formula that's going to happen there. And then my structures, like I do have a formula that is like, it's not unique to me. It comes from just my inspiration and stuff like that. Then yeah, maybe it's more methodical when it comes to music production, and my writing is experience. So it's like I'm trying to find a sound that closely represents whatever it is that I'm feeling or whatever I've been through. And like when I'm writing songs, I'm really, really trying to depict a particular emotion, and when I'm singing and performing it, like I will make sure that I've chosen a voice that represents that feeling or that story. Like I said with Letter, I chose that like stylized musical theater voice and pattern, because it says you have to listen to it because it's telling you a story or something like that. I have another song with a producer called Mellow Z where I was doing an impression for that entire song, and like the amount of times I played that to people and they're like, who's singing? I'm like, that's me. Because I'm like, there's just songs where I'm just like, I've figured out how to sing in the style of somebody else I was listening to or something like that. And like, it made it sound like there was pain in how I was singing. So yeah, I choose that too. Even in terms of the texture of my voice during a song or something like that, I might just do an impression just to kind of evoke a particular kind of feeling.
Nice. I'm going to see if these guys have got a question. Here's your first of two opportunities to ask a question. If you do have a question, stick your hand up. Have we got another mic? No? Okay, thank you for that. We don't have another mic. So if you shout it out, then I'll repeat it. Any questions for you guys? There you go. Cool.
Did you like teach yourself how to play keys?
Yeah, I did.
Or was it through like learning books or YouTube videos?
Just by ear. When I started the process of like learning chords and just at least the chords that I was drawn to, it was just fumbling around the keyboard. Maybe like the first time I came to producing, it was like press record, do that one chord, and then press record again, wait till that one plays, I press the next one, and then do that until I had an entire track. And it's crazy when I think about like how long it took me to produce certain songs when I was like 16 or 17, doing that method where I'm like, oh, it's got to be this chord, like, and it's got to be this one, and having to pause it every single time. But then I was layering my tracks like 60 sounds in for just the beat. It's just crazy because now these days I've got it down to like maximum 10 or something like that sounds. But I was 17, like there needs to be 60 sounds in this. It needs to sound like an entire orchestra plus like the DJ's playing the track in the background sort of thing. And I was literally playing each chord in, stop, the next one, for, I could have been like a whole day. Literally I would lose entire days just making one beat. But then I loved it too because like it was more fun back then when you're doing it that way, and like having to, even if someone was there with me, like, hey, when I press this one, you press those two notes and the bass as well, just because my fingers can't quite reach. Just stuff like that. It was more fun. It was just part of the process. But yeah.
Last one, there's a question here, someone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. They got me into like producing.
Yeah. Justified, the entire album. On that Justified album, it will probably be the song "Let's Take a Ride." Are you familiar with the Justified album? Every song on that, to be honest, like, see, yeah, exactly. If you don't know, on your train ride home, listen to Justified by Justin Timberlake. Because the thing is about it, great record. The thing is about that, exactly. I think what it is Pharrell was originally writing that album, and I think he was meant to pitch it to Michael Jackson. So that the thing that's so beautiful about it is you can hear the Michael Jackson isms in how he was writing the songs, but it being delivered by cool white boy Justin Timberlake, it was just like, what? Justin, you got flavor like that. And obviously at the time he was dancing, every video had the dance routine. I couldn't notice something one night. You're like, what? I was obsessed. If you imagine every time the music videos came, oh my days, I was just like, ain't nobody love you like I love you. But just imagine, so if someone's made and written an album and written all of these songs for the Michael Jackson, and then like Michael's just like, nah, I'm not too fussed about it. And then you watch the YouTube videos of like Justin Timberlake and Pharrell laying down the tracks, so they're still up there, laying down these songs. It's like you get so invested in each of these songs. So I think as like young me who loved that sound anyways, to know that story just made me fall in love with that project. But everything on that, even like things like "Slave for You" by Britney Spears, boys. He had what is the song with Madonna? There's all these random tracks, and it's just like when there was a period of like 6 years or something like that where the Neptunes like had like the top 50. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember the stat. It's 40% exactly of all the hot records on radio were Neptune productions, and then you could just be listening to an album like a Jay-Z album, and then you'd know when it was a Neptune's track, and like Excuse Me Miss, or what's the one? Oh God, LL Cool J song. This is for my number one. Oh, have you got that tune? We're gonna no for real. Yo, DJ.
We're here for another 2 hours.
No, but geez, what I mean.
Which would be wonderful. Yeah, but on that tip though, I mean, I'm sure we're all, a lot of us were producers in this room, but I think what's really interesting about, we've all got our nerd stories. Or shout to Chad Hugo, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that what's really good about production is that everyone has a lot of producers have unique styles. Those guys in particular were groundbreaking, really unique at that time.
Yeah.
What do you think? Was it about their sound that was so kind of infectious? Looking back, you can listen to those. When we were in as fans, right? And also nerds trying to work out what the kicks and snares are.
Yeah.
But looking back, what do you think it was about their sound that was so kind of, exciting and distinctive?
There was a lot of flavor and the groove. So I think because Chad and Pharrell, they were very much like, it was bass and drums heavy. The chords were always like, they always had the same kind of chord styles. So firstly, you could recognize it was them. They were using all the sounds out of a Triton.
Chord Triton.
Exactly. So it's just like, the sound was uniform, and they just, it's like, when someone just knows how to use something really, really well, they knew how to get the best out of the sounds that were on that Triton. And like, I can't put it down to anything more than flavor, because it's a really easy sound to emulate right now. Like I said, when I was 17, everything was just like I was stylized Neptunes. But no one quite does it like them, because there's loads of producers now, like my friends Romdefool, who like does a really, really good like version of Neptune style production. Like loads of people do, but it's just not quite the same. So I think no matter what it is, like in terms of whatever formula they were doing, just the ideas they had, the bass lines were always perfect, like the actual melodies that they chose. Pharrell was really good at writing just like nice hooks, and like if it is nice, it doesn't even matter the quality. Like ultimately, if this is a good melody, it's like it's gonna hit you in a particular way. They always chose great melodies. It's like that song produced by the Neptunes or written by the Neptunes on everyone's album was always my favorite, and I could hear it straight away. So I think it was just it was purely down to flavor.
Anyone else? Yeah, who's that? Oh, there you go. Cool. Go for it.
When it comes to vocal production, what was the process then you had to go through to find the right mix for your voice? And also, because you do like a lot of R&B music, and R&B vocals tend to be whispery, but I noticed that you don't put too much of that whisper vibe on your vocals. Yeah. So how did you manage to kind of like still make it sound, smooth and soulful, but still have that edge in your voice?
I'm going to answer like the second question. The whispery thing is simply because I just can't do it. Like my voice has got way too much bass in it for me to be it's like it just doesn't sound good for me to do the whisper singing. That's all. I literally, if I could do it, I would have, because look how popular that whisper music is. No shade as well. There was no shade to anyone, of course. I know they're filming that, so cut that bit out. But yeah, I have to choose things that work for my voice, because a lot of when I started music in the beginning, I was running away from my voice because I was just like, it doesn't really sound like a girl when I was singing. A lot of people would listen to my records if you didn't see my name or see my face, and even if you see my face, you don't know if this is a boy or girl sometimes, did you? Other than the fact that I'm wearing makeup right now, but like the texture of my voice. Firstly, I was kind of trying to sing a little bit higher, trying to cut out some of like the bass tones in my voice, and then it was just losing character. So when it came to like actual just performance, I had to just decide to just be myself firstly, and then finding, okay, how do I EQ my voice, which would be more approaching how you'd approach mixing male vocals or something like that, where you want to keep some of the bass tones, but you still need to cut a little bit off the bottom. Whereas with a lot of female vocals, you don't need to do anything in the bass because it just doesn't exist and stuff like that. I try not to over compress my vocals because I like dynamic, and like music today is like crushed so much, and like everything is compressed so like it's just squashed because music is just super loud. But like I'm a jazz person, I'm an R&B and a soul person first and foremost, so I want just a tiny bit of compression on my voice. And like you'll hear there's such a difference in records when you've whacked on so much compression, you lose so much character. So it's just like, I think that's one thing that's probably a little bit different about my sound, and maybe it's what makes it sound old school, is that I'm trying to use slightly like older techniques when it comes to mixing. I'm not trying to whack everything through a limiter so that it's super, super loud. I want things to smack. I definitely always want my tunes to thump when we're playing it out here, but I want my vocals to still dance. I don't want them to be squashed and be right at the front and then the bass is just thumping and stuff like that. So I try not to do too much processing to my vocal. It's more about the performance. I'm like, so much of what I'm doing in terms of the dynamics is just in the performance, and yeah, just trying to make it sound as much like I'm just in the room as opposed to it's being squished through loads of plugins and stuff like that. Yeah.
On the subject of plugins, what are your go-to compressors and EQs? And I know you're a Fab Filter fan.
I am a Fab Filter fan. Definitely for EQs. It's like I would just use the same combination of like Fab Filter and Waves. And in terms of mixing and vocal mixing, it's just CLA2 or CL2A. I can't remember which one, what the actual letters are on Waves. Just because in terms of a compressor, yes, I can go into Fab Filter and adjust the attack and the release to get a really precise compression. And sometimes I do that, but sometimes you just put on the Waves compressor and it's just like, this is perfect. I don't have to think about this for 10 minutes until it's right. You literally just set your threshold and like turn up the gain a tiny little bit and you get this really perfect like balance on the vocal. So I've stopped making it complicated for myself. That's basically it. Before I used to go into Fab Filter and like get the really precise ratio, like listen, switch it off, switch it on again, switch off, turn the attack a little bit up, switch it off again. But then I just like started using Waves and I'm just like, oh, this is doing everything that like I had been doing for an hour with the Fab Filter compressor. So I was just keeping it really simple with those two.
And you're using Studio One, right? So
I am.
yeah, so you were a Cubaser for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, you bypassed the whole Logic Pro thing.
Yeah.
You know, so how did you skip from Cubase to Studio One?
So in terms of, actually with my whole journey was Fruity Loops to Reason, and I was on Reason for the longest time, but I never moved off Reason 5 for like 5 years or something like that. But just because I think like Reason gives you so much flavor. Once you get it, like all of the attitude is in Reason, but quality is absolutely rubbish. At least on Reason 5, like to get quality sound out of it, it was quite difficult because it was so hard to like even bounce stems and stuff like that. Then I moved to Cubase, but Cubase is not, at least in my opinion, wasn't very good for music production. So I was just using Cubase for vocal arranging, and I still do, like even now.
So
then
like just for editing and moving stuff around.
Literally just that. Then I was introduced to Studio One by an awesome sound engineer, mixing and mastering engineer. I think that was like 4 years ago at this point. And Studio One is just like an amalgamation of everything that I love. It had all of the stuff I needed that like allowed me to bypass Logic, and it just felt, and it still is so intuitive, and like it incorporates certain like AI stuff that's coming out in a lot of doors now. That means that like the program is doing a lot of the creative stuff for you when you run out of ideas.
Give us an example of something.
So Studio One has this really cool chord detection software. I think Ableton has it as well, but like it is, so basically what it does, you can take any piece of audio, you literally just right click on it and hit detect chord, and it tells you all of the chords that are playing in this audio. Then you can extract that to the chord track, so you literally, exactly, you know what I'm saying. Legit. So you have this sample, you might put in this entire Stevie Wonder song, rip all of the chords from it, put it into the chord track, and then like there's that, which is cool enough because it's just like, then I know what's happening. But then you can, in the chord track, click on each individual chord in the entire song, and then it comes up with this reel, which is like circle of fifths and stuff like that, and just change, and it reharmonizes the sample chord by chord to any chord you want. That like instantly you can just start remixing a song without having putting anything into it. And I've sat for like 2 hours at one point just with a Boys to Men song, like, or one of their acapellas, sorry, and I'll be like, ooh, they're going who we do, and I change the entire song, like literally the chord progression of this acapella, making a completely different tune, same lyrics, but like, and it is so easy to do. So it's just like, that's one of my favorite features because it just allows you to just mess around all day.
All right, Ambassador, here we go.
I mean,
So what do you struggle with? I mean, it seems to me that you seem very confident with your songwriting, particularly when you go into your zone and stuff, and you're on the beat making side of things. You seem confident. What do you struggle with?
I struggle. I mean, not everything. Like, but I think there are times where I struggle with any one thing that I do. Songwriting can be the toughest, but because I'm so like hell bent on having not said what I've already said before, and like right now I'm like, I don't want to have every song be about the same thing. And like my mission for the last year has been, I'm going to take really specific subjects and then write a song about that. So, which is, I mean, it's been a good approach for me now, because I'm like, this whole entire song is about telling someone, like I have a new song called Avalanche, and it is literally just, I don't want to fall like an avalanche. Don't make me fall in love with you. And it's like, I came up with the title of the song first. So it's just like, everything has to be in that theme now. And that,
like a metaphor.
yeah,
Sure,
literally
yeah.
like a metaphor. But then that also restricts me, because I'm like, if I decide that a beat or something like that sounds like it's sexy, so it sounds like it has to be a love song. If I don't feel like I want to write a love song, I can't write anything to that piece of music. And then I can be like, and I'm just being stubborn a lot of the time. And I get stubborn when it comes to making decisions about what I'm going to write about or how I'm going to say it, because I want it to be that you read the lyrics and it's quite interesting without listening to it. And like, I might write some lyrics and be like, this isn't going to be particularly interesting in terms of just the words of what I'm saying. So then that would stop me for a few days maybe in terms of writing the song or finishing it. But other days I'm not that fussy. So I don't know. It's like other days it's just like, I'm just going to repeat the same 8 words for the whole 3 minutes of the song, and that's just the vibe. So, I mean, that's one thing that can slow me down, is just being a little bit stubborn with the subjects. Other things, like I might be in a space where I'm like not running out of ideas, but I feel like I've done everything before, because I've been making music for ages. And like my process when I was younger, because it was so calamitous, like everything that was happening was really unique, because there was no formula to what I was doing, and there was no like theory. There was not even I didn't even have an idea of in the beginning what was going to end up coming out at the end. Whereas now it's just like, sometimes I open up Studio and I'm just like, I want to make a song that sounds like this, and I can't even get started because I'm like, the first drum and snare combination is just not right, and I'm like, I won't allow myself to put anything else on top of this until that is right. So I guess there's overthinking it now ends up like slowing down the process, whereas before it was just madness.
And I guess the stakes are much higher now, right? Do you mean?
Definitely.
So,
Yeah.
Is that scary?
Yes, it is scary, because it's like anything, you're always going to have, there are results that you want to get out of what you're going to do. And it's like, you're looking around at your peers or at your heroes or at who is doing particularly well right now, and you're trying to figure out what is it that they're doing. So what can I implement in my own music, in my own career, in my social media posts and stuff like that, stuff that like people are obsessing about, and how am I going to get the same results, or will I? And then it's like it takes away just from their enjoying the creative process, because it's like ultimately when I finish this song, I want that this DJ is going to play it, or I want that this channel will see it, so then it will be a good piece, like a good audition or something like that. So like the stakes get higher every year. I'm thankful, I'm privileged to be in a position where people are listening, but like I want to keep going, and it's like I can't just do anything that I want, because the mood has changed in here. Oh wow, that was bright. But yeah, it's kind of like every time I do something that's really cool, like a check off my bucket list, it's like, okay, the next thing has to be bigger and better than that. And like, then you kind of feel like you can't put a foot, you know, you're not allowed to put a foot wrong, because I think like anything, like one bad move is like 2 steps backwards after all you've done, or because people are always anticipating something new or something more exciting, it's like we can't do anything that's just normal now. We can't do anything that's expected. And I guess the pressure then is like, what's a new hot, really cool thing that I can do? But then also because it's kind of like, what's what I'm looking for? Kind of trying to manufacture cool things to do. It's not as fun. That's what it is.
Well, I guess, you know, it's the age-old getting into the marketing promo of stuff and trying to be relevant in times that aren't so relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, what's the scene? I mean, you know, first of all, you know, you had a great year last year in terms of releases.
That's lucky.
You know, how did the releases convert in the marketplace in terms of, you know, looking back?
There's something I say at every thing that's kind of like this, is every song changes your life, but like often in a way that you don't expect. So I might have said, I want to release this song because I want to be able to be on this particular playlist, and I'll find like that won't be anything close to what happens, but a particular, I don't know, celebrity will hear that song or something like that. And I would never have thought I would have traveled as much as I did last year, because my goal wasn't at all to travel. My goal was always I wanted to get certain playlists and I wanted to get videos out and blah, 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 blah. But like it created other blessings. So I think it wasn't so much that like the way that people are measuring other, like measuring success through other metrics, like loads of streams. It wasn't that like I was hitting millions of streams on all of these tunes. It was nothing like that. It was more like I put out one song and like one of my heroes heard it, and then I got invited to this like really cool writing camp, or I ended up or like Joe Budden was one of the people that talked about Oops or something like that. So it's just like these really cool things that like, to me, they're really cool cultural things, not so much business things.
It's the happenstance things.
Yeah.
Things you don't expect.
Exactly that. Sure. Loads of that.
And has there been a disconnect between the strategy that you had in terms of getting playlists and the fact that, you know, perhaps you didn't reach those goals, but the other happenstance things were more powerful, perhaps?
100%. I think when you're focusing on stats, then it kind of like completely neglects just real people and the real connections that you're going to make because of music. I know I met like a good 40% of people that have inspired my music for the last 5 years, all at one time last year. And when I was making this music, I wasn't even thinking about the fact that I could meet my heroes. I was so focused on we have to do numbers, or I need to grow my social media, or I need to whatever the stuff that like record labels are going to be looking at, because I want to be able to have like a substantial music career in the business side of things, so that I don't have to do anything else but music. But ultimately, from just making the tunes, I just made really cool friends. And it was just like, and I made friends in places that like, it means I'm going to do really cool music things forever, whether people see it or not. And like that changed my entire perspective. like I went to the playlist retreat August last year with DJ Jazzy Jeff at his house, and it was like at the time I'd just become obsessed with a singer called Devin Morrison, and like I met everyone, literally everyone that I listened to was there at the retreat. It was 120 artists, like Robert Glasper was there, Terrace Martin, Questlove, like literally everyone who I'd ever want to meet was there, and they got to hear my music. And it's like you got to jam with them, you got to sing with them, you got to talk to them, and like at that point I wasn't there because I had some kind of massive internet success or anything like that. I didn't have any massive record sales at that point. My album hadn't even come out, so it was like 2 songs at the top of the year. It was just really just having naturally met Jeff it wasn't even a year before that point, and he just liked what he heard at that point. So it's just like actually just having made the tunes, it didn't matter if the songs had come out or not. It was just I bumped into him. Well, didn't bump into him. I did a show and he was there. But like, but it was like having a really good conversation with him, and then him seeing me perform and being like, "Hey, send me some songs." And then he heard the songs like, "Yo, these are great. Do you want to write some songs to my beats?" And then it was just like all spiraled out of control. And it's like that had nothing to do with whether I had a track that had 1 million plays. Didn't have to get any Spotify playlists to do that. And now I know that like I'm now in a WhatsApp group with all of these guys, and every day they're just sharing their secrets, their unreleased songs. And I'm just like, I'm hearing something that's probably not even going to come out from like a hero right now. And I'm like, this is so much more valuable to me than like being in the top 40 right this minute. One day, obviously, if I could be in the top 40, that would be humongous. I'm not going to lie about that. But like, for right this minute, that stuff matters a lot more. Yeah.
Thank you. Got time for couple more questions if you've got them? Yeah, it's at the front here.
No, I mean, with my songs that have come out, some of like the remixes stuff, I'm the one that mixed that. But ultimately, with my album, do you know Eric Lau? Eric Lau is the producer. I mean, some people said yes, a lot of people kind of exactly. Eric is, I don't know, just one of the most amazing people, just in terms of just music in general, and just like he's like a guru, but he's a peace bringer. And like I bumped into him at the Roundhouse at Little Sims Festival like a few years ago, and then I just said I needed a bit of help getting the sound to where I needed it to get to. So he mixed my album, and someone called Kelly, the company's called, he goes by Kel Dada, I can't remember his last name, but the company's called Amachrome. They mastered it. Where they're based? Some in the US anyways, but if it's not Eric who did my album, I have a friend called Iman Hussein, who is, he's just like, and he's kind of like another Eric, peace bringer kind of guy. I kind of always go to people like that, who just understand and they really care about like sound design and stuff like that. So if I haven't mixed it, which is very rarely that stuff is going to be on my like main projects, it's either Eric or Iman. Yeah.
Cool. Someone else? One there and then one on the left.
What is your favorite thing about your own music right now?
What's my favorite thing about my own music? The topics. So kind of what I touched on is that I've been challenging myself to take really specific scenarios and write entire songs out of that, so that the songs are really unique. So like, and how I'm approaching the songs, because I'm absorbing so much music right now and so many other artists, because I'm just, I'm a music fan first, I'm a music lover. So like, I really, really listen to other artists, and I really, really, really listen to other producers to kind of like learn and absorb what they're doing. Right now, I'm kind of loving the fact that I'm really able to emulate like Timbaland kind of style drums in my production. And then my manager John, he kind of said, oh, this mix kind of sounds like Missy Elliott, because obviously I listen to lots of Missy on my new song. And like then the topics, just how I'm cruising through the song, that they're all just, the whole song is one big metaphor. So I think I'm liking that. Like, you will listen to my song and you wouldn't, this whole entire song was just written off of like springboarding off one word. So yeah.
And the last one on the left here somewhere. Am I just pointing at thin air?
Babes.
Okay, go for it.
When you
Yeah.
and you kind of decided to finish before you release it, right?
Yeah.
At what point did you say to yourself, I need to let go of this, and then not have the attachment that I had to it in terms of actually putting your foot into it, like changing the snare or changing the lyrics?
It's hard to get to that point. I think I used to be I think I just got in too much trouble tinkering with music too long before. Like, I think after you've done 3 or 4 versions of a song, that's enough now. That's like, I used to have 7 different versions, and having reproduced the song, like literally the whole beat has changed. And then I've gone back and done the whole top line vocal again and stuff like that, that I'll be working on one song for like a year and a half or something like that. Like, there's just so many different versions of it. That's just not, it's just not like, it's not acceptable. That's what I mean. It's not acceptable. So now I'm like, once I get to version 3, and that is literally just the only thing that changed is like maybe a few of the BVs and like maybe just the intro of the first version. I'm literally just sticking with how it was in the beginning because the vibe was there. I'm losing the vibe so much when I'm rewriting bits and re-recording stuff that like I'm not doing anything more. The songs are coming out like Oops and Letter. Those are the first versions, like everything, the first, not like the first takes of the vocals or something, but the first bounce was what went to mixing and mastering. So it's just like, and I like those songs the most of everything that I've released in like ever, because I just decided I liked it as it was done. It was mixed, it was mastered, and it was out. And that period of time was only like 2 or 3 months. Usually it's like I can sit on a song for that period of time and it doesn't come out. But like I made the song, made other songs, mixed, mastered those ones, and then it was out a month after that period or something like that. So just, yeah, don't think about it too much.
So what's next for Emmavie?
What's next for me? So right this minute, so last year I went to Toronto with the collective called Her Songs. And like we spent 2 weeks working on an album. So it was 2 weeks. It was 1 week we spent on the album, 7 days to record 8 songs. Now, right this second, the second single comes out tomorrow. So go and listen to that. It's called How I Wonder by Her Songs. Quick plug. Then, all of last year I made so much music that I'm kind of just, everything's going to be dripping out whilst right this minute I am in writing mode for a new project. So I can't say too much because there's lots of exciting things, but there will be so much music this year. All the stuff we did last year is going to be slowly dripping out, and then I want that like I deliver another solo project by the end of this year. So that is what's next. There's more. I've got a few shows, stuff that I'm doing another like talk on Thursday with Marie Dahlstrom and Ego LMA, but that's more focusing on like women. It's like not a women's space or anything like, but being 3 women and like how you navigate the music industry and like how you navigate rejection and like mental health and stuff like that, because that's a very real thing too. And like, so we're doing a lot of stuff like that. I'm doing some more traveling soon, and ultimately just more and more music for you guys.
Emmavie, thank you. Awesome.
Thank you
so
for
much,
having
man.
me.
Give it up.
Sorry if I talk too much. Go download my album.